Hey everybody, James P. Wagner here for another business book review. You might notice I'm in a different setting this time. I'm actually in a hotel. I'm on a little business trip, but it's been a couple of weeks, so I figured it was time to do another one. I've got an OG one for you today, actually, in more ways than one, because we got The Greatest Salesman in the World by OG Mandino. um, Pardon the pun, but not really. The title is very intriguing, The Greatest Salesman of the World, but this is actually another one that's a little bit similar to the Richest Man in Babylon in the sense that it's actually told like a parable. And there's a lot of principles in here that do apply to salesmanship, but also apply to the general mindset and the life of abundance. So this isn't exactly like an instruction manual on how to be the greatest salesman in the world exactly, but it's telling a story of a character named Hafid, who in this setting is the greatest salesman of the world. He's a legend. Everybody knows him far and wide. And so it starts off actually with a bang with him basically giving away practically everything that he owns except for the set of scrolls, which his assistant comes in and asks him, like, why are these scrolls so important? And then you kind of go in flashbacks where you see pieces of Hafid's life when he was younger and how he came to get these scrolls. And these scrolls are sort of like, 10 secrets of success. That's not really what they're called. But basically one of those deals where it's like, follow these rules and you will achieve success and abundance and all that. But it's told in a clever way with a little bit of a storyline. So it's not just like a how-to book exactly. It's really kind of a story, a little bit of a novel, really fable overall. This was actually written in 1967, I believe it was published somewhere in the 60s. So it's one of the earlier ones, not quite as early as The Richest Man in Babylon. In fact, I think that some of this story, the way the story was told, was probably inspired by The Richest Man in Babylon. So if you've read that, you'll kind of see some similarities here. But there's a few things that this one kind of does that a lot of business books don't really go into that much, or lifestyle books in general, personal finance or whatever. The 10 scrolls or rules of success, it's like you've seen that a lot at this point, but this is one of the earlier editions that kind of had it that way. And a few things that it talks about, number one, some of the more poignant ones is, the good habits, the idea that if you become a slave to your habits, that they can go one way or the other. You could either become a slave to your bad habits or a slave to your good habits. And the good thing about becoming a slave to good habits is that they compound on each other. And, you do a little bit and you continue doing a little bit and it compounds. We've seen that this philosophy and this mindset in a bunch of other books, but this is one that kind of talks about it. And one of the quotes about how we're not formed to be idle, that we should always be engaged in something. There's things like, awake every day with a smile, ready to take on the world, live each day as if it's your last, things that we've kind of heard before. But, this book also really focuses a lot on immersion, because when you're reading the story and as the scrolls are being revealed one at a time, one thing that he actually gives the instructions to the character that he's showing it to, and this is that you're supposed to reread the scroll for 30 days before going on to the next one, which of course sounds boring, but everything today, we're very instant gratification. But the idea that basically the next one is not going to make as much sense to you unless you've mastered the first one. So kind of like stacked learning, one on top of the other, and that you really shouldn't progress until you're ready, which is something that really, kind of hit home to me a lot, because I've been reading these business books, these, success mindset books. I've been reading them for lots and lots of years. I started them, probably when I was an undergrad in college. Well, actually, probably sooner than that, because, in the 90s, when I was like 10 in my mom's car, I was listening to Tony Robbins stuff because my mom was listening to Tony Robbins stuff. But I started really kind of looking at them myself, probably when I was in undergrad in college, And the thing is I remember what my mindset was back then. And there was a lot of things that I've gone and I've reread. And they just, even though I'm reading the same words that I was reading back then, it's like it takes on a whole new meaning now that there's so much more knowledge I've accumulated as time went on, and it seems, because we hear all these cliche sayings and these things over and over, and you're just like, oh yeah, that's nice, that's popcorn, that's fortune cookie information and all that stuff. And we, sometimes we overlook it or we take it for granted, and we don't really understand what it's actually trying to say. So, we might read through a book where we're looking for specific things, and we'll only kind of absorb what it is we're ready to absorb at that point. So this book kind of having the very step-by-step progression, and the idea that you need to become immersed with one of these scrolls that he's showing, or one of these ideas, these lessons, before you can progress to the next one. It's a little bit of a boring truth, but it is a truth that I think a lot of us need to really kind of understand more and have appreciation for immersion, because we always do want to rush to the finish line, but sometimes we're not ready for it, and we get stuff that we're not ready for. So I think that's something that's really good that this book kind of goes into. You'll see some stuff that you'll probably will have seen before in other books if you've read more modern things, but this is like sort of a source material for a lot of it. And it's an interesting, entertaining story. I like the way it was told with the flashbacks of, an old character showing how he got to where he was from when he was younger. Because at the point in the story where you first meet him, he has this huge trade empire, and he's basically just disassembling it to kind of pass it on to all his managers and all this stuff. But then you kind of hear where it all came from. And there is, subtleties of a religious theme in here as well. So if that's your thing, you might appreciate that. But if it's not your thing, it's not so overwhelmingly obvious in the story that it's really going to impact any of the stuff that's said. It's not in your face or anything, so it's still really good. And also, it's a pretty short read. The book, it's a pocket-sized book. It's I don't know exactly how many pages. I want to say probably like 150 small pages. So it shouldn't take you more than a few hours to read. Like I said, there, some of the stuff in there, it's not completely up to date, and you might see newer philosophical versions of some of the same stuff if you read some more up to date books. But this is a source of where that came from, and I do think this includes some things that some later editions of these things have kind of forgotten. So it's definitely worth a read. So hopefully you'll pick up a copy and write a comment or whatever about what you think about it. So, well, that's what I got for you today. We'll see you next time. Take care.